end is here. USA and Canada just made a shocking announcement, sending shivers down the spines of all common people. Non-EV gas-powered cars are getting banned, and it's happening sooner than you might have thought. And get this, people are totally going against EVs, refusing to buy them, even straight up abandoning thousands of EVs. But the elite politicians are keen on forcing EVs on the people. So why are people hating on EVs? And why exactly are the political leaders going against the nation and ripping off the middle class at the same time? EVs are not as good as they seem, and the government doesn't want you knowing the full story. But in this video, I'm going to expose the truth. First off, let's talk about what's going down in the USA. You know how we love our road trips and our gas-guzzling cars, right? Well, things are taking a crazy turn. As of now, 9 states, led by California, are saying a firm no more to new gas-powered cars by 2035. Yep, you heard that right. They're not just cutting down, they're straight up banning the sale of new gas cars. This isn't just about reducing pollution, it's a complete game changer. But wait, there's more. The big folks at the EPA or Environmental Protection Agency are pushing for something even wilder. They want 67% of all new cars sold to be EVs by 2032. So they want 2 out of every 3 cars to be electric by 2032. That's not even a decade away. Think about it. That means EV sales have to jump 10 times from where they are now. And right now, electric cars are just about 7% of new car sales. This is like trying to jump to the moon. But what if I were to tell you that EVs are doing more harm than good? All these promises are nothing but a big scam. In the next 2 minutes, I'm going to expose what the government doesn't want you to know, so listen very carefully. Now, President Joe Biden, he's been talking about EVs too. Last year, he said he wants half of all new cars sold to be EVs or hybrids by 2030. But the EPA, they're like, nah, we're going bigger. They're not including hybrids in their goal, so it's all about fully electric cars. What these guys don't understand is how badly this will hit the common man if implemented. Think about it. The average price for a new EV is well over $55,000. And you can add to that the heavy insurance cost on these things. In some cases, Tesla owners are having to pay as high as $6,000 for insuring their car annually. But more on that later. And tell me this, do all of you have the facility to charge cars in your house? What about the folks that live in colder climates where the range drops even further? And don't even get me started on how the batteries degrade on these things. Used EV prices drop like crazy. So in just 3 years, you're looking at a price drop of almost 50%, simply because the batteries can't hold to their full capacity anymore. So here's where it gets tricky. This isn't an outright ban on gas cars. You could still drive your old gas guzzlers or buy a used one. But if you're looking for a brand new ride after 2035 in these states, it's gonna have to be electric. So the car companies, they're in a frenzy. Some are like, this is too much, too fast. But others like Tesla are all for it. They're saying, bring it on. We can sell only electric cars by 2030. Yeah, Elon Musk and his crew are pretty confident. Now let's look at the numbers because they paint a clearer picture. From 2023 to 2027, automotive companies are pouring in $616 billion in total investments in EVs, as reported by consulting firm AlixPartners. Despite these investments, EVs are, surprisingly, piling up at dealership lots. Initially, both EV and ICE vehicles had about the same day's supply, which is a measurement of how long a dealer's current inventory would last without new stock coming in. But things changed drastically. While ICE vehicle supplies remained stable, the supply of EVs shot up to 97 days in early October, even touching a peak inventory of around 111 days in early July. This means dealers have more EVs sitting unsold for longer periods. In a striking contrast, back in August 2023, it took about twice as long to sell an EV in the US as it did the previous January, while gas-burning vehicles continued to sell. All EV makers have to lower car prices to stay competitive. They are saying the demand is huge, but on the other hand, they are slowing down production. Ford killed their F-150 Lightning, while GM stopped production of their Silverado EV. The Japanese, like Toyota and Honda on the flip side, are making huge profits selling good hybrids. But here's the catch. Switching to electric isn't just about making new cars. We need tons of batteries. And guess what? Most of those materials come from outside the US. Plus, where are all these electric cars going to charge? The whole country needs a massive upgrade in charging stations. So what's the public saying? Well, it's a mixed bag. Some people are super excited about electric cars, but others, especially those who can't afford a $50,000 car, are not so thrilled. And get this, Canada is joining the US in the non-EV ban as well. By 2026, Canada wants 20% of all new cars sold to be zero-emission vehicles. That includes battery electric, hydrogen, and plug-in hybrids. Then, just 4 years later, in 2030, they're cranking that number up to a whopping 60%. And by 2035, it's game over for gas cars. 100% of new cars sold will have to be zero emission. And it's not just North America getting in on this. The European Union and the UK are also jumping on the EV bandwagon. They've set their own deadlines to ditch gas cars by 2035. Let's not forget the big picture, climate change. The whole idea behind this massive push for EVs is to cut down on pollution. Cars and trucks are one of the biggest sources of greenhouse gases, so making a switch to electric can really help out the planet. But it's a huge change, and not everyone's ready for it. And what if I tell you EVs are not as green as they seem? But there's a darker side to this story that's kind of shocking and not talked about enough. So EVs use these big batteries, and they're made up of rare metals like lithium and cobalt. These metals are crucial for the batteries to work well and safely. But here's the catch. A huge chunk of the world's supply of cobalt comes from just one place, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or DRC. And the situation there is pretty bad. There are no real safety rules or laws to protect the workers, and a shocking number of them are kids. We're talking tens of thousands, some as young as 6 years old. These kids work in brutal conditions. They crawl into narrow tunnels that are way too small for adults, digging for cobalt with their bare hands, sometimes without proper safety gear or enough oxygen. And here's another twist. Some big car companies like Tesla and others say they're trying to cut down on using cobalt or get it from more ethical sources. But the truth is, tracing these supply chains is super tricky. It's hard to know for sure where every bit of material in your EV battery comes from. So while EVs definitely have their benefits, like lower emissions when they're on the road, but there's this whole backstory that's not as clean and green as we'd like it to be. But regardless of what's happening in the EV market, Biden is imposing rules and regulations to get rid of non-EVs and strong-arm the middle class. His stance is, companies should make EVs, or simply perish, Jack. And as for the middle class, he has smartly introduced these tax incentives so that people think EVs are affordable, whereas in reality, the truth is something else. On the flip side, former President Trump isn't buying the EV hype. He's more about economic nationalism, worrying that this rapid shift to EVs might be a misstep. Trump's concerns revolve around the practicality and cost of EVs, questioning their feasibility and impact on the traditional auto industry. He's skeptical about relying on tech that's still, in his view, in its early days. Trump's approach is more about preserving jobs and the status quo in the auto sector, and less about jumping on the EV bandwagon. Now, about these rules and regulations, they're not just suggestions. They're pretty strict, and car makers have to follow them. If they don't, they'll get fined. The U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is all about this. He says it'll save Americans money and make the country more energy secure. But here's the real kicker. People aren't buying electric cars as fast as the government hoped. Even with tax credits and incentives, EVs are just sitting in dealer lots unsold. Before we continue, if you could hit that subscribe button, it would make my day. Car dealerships are freaking out. They're telling the government to slow down on pushing EVs. 4,000 car dealers even sent a ravaging letter to the Biden administration, begging to stop pushing for EVs so hard, but no one seems to be listening. Then there's the job situation. Union workers are worried. They're thinking, what happens to our jobs if everything goes electric? It's a big concern, especially in the auto industry, which has been around for forever. Ford and GM have fired thousands of workers already, and over in Germany, Volkswagen has been doing the same. So all in all, this hurried push seems to be doing more harm than good, at least for the middle class. While EVs are seen as a key solution to reducing emissions, they aren't the only option. There's a growing debate about whether we should put all our eggs in the EV basket or explore a mix of technologies, including hybrids and other alternative fuels. Should gas-powered cars get banned? Do we need to go all electric? Let me know down in the comments below. I just uploaded a video about groundbreaking news that could hurt the entire EV industry. Do check it out if you want to be truly shocked by what's about to happen with our precious EVs.